Let's do it. Welcome into episode 70 of the Level Flight podcast. We've got a full crew here today. We all had to be here for episode 70, another milestone. Brian and I did the LFP live on Sunday, but Elliott is back here today. Fellas, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. And I mentioned this at the end of the last episode, or at the end of the LFP live. We were just about at our biggest month we've ever had. And we surpassed it almost immediately after uploading yesterday. And that put me in a pretty great mood. So
yeah. We're good over here. I mean, the weather sucks. Trying to get around is a pain, but you know, it's the perks of living in this city, and you know, you just got to grind your way through it, just like last night's game.
It's just it's a long season, Elliott. It's a grind.
Oh boy,
you just got to get away with it. Just got to get the 2 points. You know.
Quickly on the weather. Walking to school today, there's like half a foot of snow. Under the snow, there's ice, and I'm wearing a hoodie, no toque, and no mitts, and I feel warm. I'm like, what is going on here? There's snow up to my ankles with ice under it, and I'm not even wearing a jacket or toque in February, and I feel warm. I'm like, what is going on? It's nuts. But yeah, it snowed overnight, and it was warm. It was plus like 4 today. It made no sense. Anyways,
it's let's talk about tonight too. So
yeah, it is dropping.
Well, no, a weather podcast.
It's just
yeah.
Meteorology. That's what we're here.
Level flight weather. Let's do it. No,
another one of the 5 different podcasts we're running on this one podcast.
new program. Yeah, no. The Winnipeg Jets did play a game. We did the LFP live Sunday morning, but they played that night. Defeated the Arizona Coyotes 4-3 in overtime. Kyle Connor with the overtime winner. Another game against a bad team. That was their 12th straight loss, the Arizona Coyotes. And it was another game where the Winnipeg Jets could have easily lost. They lost the analytical battle. They lost the Corsi, expected goals, high danger chances, whatever you want to look at, especially in the third period. They got dominated for the last 20 minutes. And honestly, frankly, they're lucky that they won that game. Connor Hellebuyck played fantastic, especially, again, in the final 20 minutes. But, again, they come away with the 2 points, so I guess you can't really criticize them that much. Brian, what did you see from this game? Kind of late Sunday afternoon, early Sunday evening. Jets come away with the OT win.
Firstly, I don't care. I'm going to criticize them all I want.
Yeah, fair.
Can we stop letting bad teams hang around when, like, very clearly you have the ability to, you know, beat the hell out of them? Like, truly, like, it's not like Arizona has any sort of like definitive plan of attack that you can't just counter.
And they jumped on them in the first period and dominated the first minutes.
Yeah,
they were up 3-1.
But no, like it was so frustrating to see such a great first period, and then it was just like they abandoned anything that was working, and we just watched the top line get absolutely caved again. And I mean, power play and 3-on-3 goals from obviously that line, which it pads the stats, but it's very much masking the issue at hand. Which that's the thing. I'm conflicted because I'm so happy they managed to claw that victory away from what I thought was going to be a loss to a bad team. And that's two games in a row now. I'm like, can we stop letting them do this? But I wish that it was just someone else other than Kyle Connor who scored it, purely because from what you can like tell based on what he's saying, it seems like Bonus is just like, well, they're producing. So that's why.
Yeah.
So he looks at the stats in terms of, oh, they scored, not looking at whether the fact that it was, 2 goals on the power play or an overtime winner. And he's justifying it with that. And I'm sure we'll get to it, but man, did I hate his comment on the top line last night. That was very frustrating, but yeah, that's where my thoughts are. Great win after a very frustrating, you should have beaten them, into the ground sort of game.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to disagree and say that was not a good win.
Bad win.
It was, and there is a thing. It's a bad win. That was a bad win. Like I really was, to be quite honest with you, when the game went to overtime, I was kind of hoping a little bit. This sounds really bad, but I was kind of hoping that they were going to lose the game, so they give their heads a little bit of a shake. Because you can't deserve to win a game when you play that badly in the third period. You just barely scrape by to get overtime, let alone the goal you score is because you get a gift from two players who I guess just ran into each other and didn't know the other person was there. And you get a 3-on-1 against a forward who doesn't know how to play defense. Like, I was sitting there and I'm watching this happen and they're coming 3-on-1 down. And I looked to everybody I was sitting at the game with and I'm like, okay, if they don't score here, or like, I don't know what you do. If Kyle Connor does not score that, I don't know. Like, what do you do? I don't know. I just thought that the first line, obviously, as Brian mentioned, was not good. That third period wasn't great, and Kyle Connor needs to not Selly when he scores an overtime winner after not playing very good all game.
Hey man, come on. He's got to sell you that. I don't care if you score an overtime winner. I don't care if you score an overtime winner against the Vancouver Canucks on home ice to win the 1 seed in the West, or against the Arizona Coyotes. It's an overtime winner. Like you gotta get down on one knee and fist pump that thing. I'm all over that.
I see. I have a little bit of a different philosophy on that, but that's okay. That's my personal opinion. But yeah, if you even look on Money Puck, it says the Coyotes has 70%, like deserve to win meters is 70-30 in the Coyotes' favor. Like, I know they have a couple players. Like, obviously, you have Nick Schmaltz, you have Clayton Keller, you have good players on that team. Like, that team at one point was chasing for a playoff spot. Like, this isn't a team that has no pulse, right? But you need to win that game decisively, and the Jets just didn't do it.
And they're definitely a desperate team. Like I said, they came in losing 11 straight. Like, they were motivated. They're trying to get a win, like get a good feeling in that room. But you brought up the point of you were kind of almost hoping that they'd lose that game so that they could like snap out of it and be like, wow, we're not playing well enough, and like kind of realize the ramifications of what's going on. While I do agree with that sentiment, I'd rather it come like Thursday against Dallas, a team that you're 100% really competing with. If you get blown out of the building 5-1, then you're like, all right, here we go. Like against Arizona, you could be like, Sunday afternoon, like, you know, Arizona, we took them lightly, but we have no concerns. We're fine with how we're playing. Dallas is like a, you know, measuring stick, litmus test, whatever adjective or whatever, however you want to describe it. That's one of those games. And if you go into that game and get shelled at 5-on-5 and Connor Hellebuck can't stand on his head and you lose 4-0 or 4-1, that's the kind of game where you're like, all right, we need to reevaluate where we're at, because those are the kind of teams you're going to have to beat a month and a half from now, not Arizona. And I feel like just the human element of it, you lose to an Arizona, you could make a lot of excuses like, whatever. We're not worried about Arizona in a sense, but you're worried about Dallas. And if you get smoked by Dallas, then that's what's going to happen. Quickly, I do want to bring up some stats on the top line. You guys both brought up the fact that they got shelled once again at 5-on-5. They scored 4 goals.
I don't think they've had a positive game since
I was going to bring that
together.
Up. So they were put together, I believe 5 or 6 games ago. They were put together like halfway through one game, so I didn't really count that one. But the Vancouver game, they had a 45% expected goals percentage. They took over that game in the third period, 45%. I'm willing to kind of write that off as like a draw. Like that's fine, whatever. And you produce, that's fine. Then the next 4 games, 20.9% against Calgary, 18.7% against Minnesota, 27 against Chicago, and 28 against Arizona. That's all expected goals percentage at 5-on-5. You can't have that from your top line, simply put. Like the 4 goals that they scored against Arizona, great. The power play's coming around. The special teams is winning them some games. At 3-on-3, they're dynamic. Don't split these guys up on the power play or in overtime. They're as dynamic as anyone with a man advantage or open ice. That's fine. 5-on-5 structured play, they're really struggling right now. Rick Bowness said before the game Sunday, or I believe it was Saturday or Sunday, that he sat down with that line and said, basically, I expect more out of you guys. I know you're better than this at 5-on-5. And then they come into that Arizona game. They score 4 goals, a few on the power play. one in overtime, one at even strength. Mark Scheifele got that one to open the game, but they weren't any better at 5-on-5. And I think that this is a concern going forward. And against a team like Dallas, you can't get away with an 18% expected goals percentage out of your top line. You just can't. So you guys kind of hit the nail on the head there. Brian, I'll let you dive back into that comment from Rick Bowness. Do you have the quote, or like, I think I remember it.
I pulled.
Go ahead.
So this was Bowness's response to the top line having all 4 goals, but also getting hemmed in at, at all times, essentially.
Yeah.
And rather than saying, yeah, we can't have this guy, these guys getting hemmed in like that, his response was, it's not just the three forwards. There's 5 of them out there. It's not just on the forwards. The D have to help them out a little bit too. I'm sorry. Like, that is such a garbage comment. Like, that is like, you cannot justify now several weeks of this top line being absolute garbage. Like, look, just literally watch the game. Like, Rick, I don't know if you've got an obscured viewpoint from the bench or something, but you can't blame the defenders when it doesn't matter who the pairing is out there. And I've seen some people saying that, well, it's right, the defenders have to be better there. I'm like, okay, let's look at then why maybe the defense can't break the puck out. Maybe it's because that line doesn't know how to transition properly. Kyle Connor cannot transition the puck. That is one of the biggest issues in his game. And what I cannot stand is when Bowness stands up there, he takes the question about what's wrong with the first line, and he spins it to throw 2 defenders under the bus.
Yeah, and there was the one shift that they gave up the goal where they were in their own end for 2 minutes. Arizona scores, and I mean, he did call them out in a way for that shift. He said, we're just all standing around stick checking. That's not good enough. That's not what we do. But the defensemen on that shift were Morrissey and DeMello, who have been fantastic this season and get played over 22 minutes a night as a pairing. Like, I just don't see if you took offense to that shift and you are saying that it's not just the forwards, there's 5 guys on the ice. So are you like, I see where he's coming from. Like, you can't just pin it on those 3 players. Like, maybe Morrissey had an opportunity to get the puck out and failed. Fine. But Morrissey and DeMello have been fantastic this season too. And they have a track record of not losing all their minutes at 5-on-5. The top line does. Like, they've lost all their minutes at 5-on-5. That's a fact. Another stat I wanted to bring up on that exact same topic was their expected goals percentage altogether. So I said their last 4 games altogether in 113 minutes is 36.8%. That is the worst forward line that the Jets have iced this season for at least 50 minutes at 5-on-5. That is the lowest expected goals percentage of any line. Any line. Fourth line, second line when Perfetti and Ehlers were struggling, still better. And it just is ridiculous. And again, you can't have this against top line. Great. They're producing. They're overcoming it. They're scoring on the power play. They're scoring in overtime. That's awesome. They're still winning games.
What happens though if the power play gets cold?
Against a team like Dallas, if you get shelled, if your top line who plays 20 minutes, it's a third of the game. If your top line who plays 20 minutes gets shelled in all of those minutes, you're losing. That's such a tall hill to climb for your team to come back into it. And we'll see. It's definitely something that I want to watch for going forward because the power play is no longer really a concern. Like, they've found something there for sure with Velarde. But the 5-on-5 play slipping, and it's largely because of that top line. So I don't know if we have anything else on this game or that line in general. If not, no, I'm seeing head shake. So let's take a break from DraftKings. We're gonna come back. We're gonna preview the upcoming week for the Jets. They play St. Louis and Dallas this week. 1 game at home, 1 game, and then they head on the road and have a back-to-back on the weekend. But let's hear from DraftKings, and we'll be back with our thoughts on the upcoming schedule, along with Gary Bettman visiting Winnipeg.
We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet $5 on the NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And welcome back into episode 70 of the Level Flight podcast. Thank you once again to DraftKings for sponsoring this episode. And Gary Bettman is coming to Winnipeg. We talked about the attendance, the reports, the concerns, our initial thoughts on Sunday on the LFP Live. Brian and I held that one. But Gary Bettman's coming. He's doing the media at 5 p.m. For 15 minutes. That's all he's speaking with the media. And then at 5:30, I believe it is, he's doing a, quote, fireside chat hosted by Sarah Orlesky of the Jets. Fans will be able to attend. I believe it's just season ticket holders that can attend. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on it. But fireside chat, they're taking questions from fans that you had to pre-submit. And he's going to answer some questions that people may have. Basically, Gary Bettman's coming here to either, well, we'll get into our predictions of what he's going to say to the media, what he's going to say to fans. But Elliott, we never really got your thoughts on basically just the attendance. I mean, you threw some comments in the LFP Live, but the attendance reports, what were kind of your initial reactions when you saw that article came out and read Chipman's comments and things of that nature?
I mean, it's kind of just like it was expected. You look at how they have marketed the organization and what they've done in terms of the direction they've taken, and it hasn't worked, obviously. Chipman said it himself, and it was correct. They weren't a very good service organization, and now they have to try to be a sales organization, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do that either. So we're gonna see if this is a conversation where Gary Bettman is coming in and saying, well, you know, this team is run by a very, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, organization, whatever word he uses, but they need a little bit of help, right? Like, I don't know if this is Bettman trying to say we're going to do everything we can to keep the team around, and so we're going to help we're going to help the Jets by maybe not giving them money, but like hooking them up with corporate sponsors and stuff, like doing some sort of something like that, because we know that as much as some of the local reporters have taken it this way, and a lot of the fans have taken it this way, they think that fan support is just your casual average Joe fan that buys season tickets or buys tickets to games. Connor, you said it on the show. The people buying tickets before the game or just single game tickets is not a problem. For the most part, I would even say that season tickets have not really been a problem. What the problem is with this organization right now is they don't have enough corporate sponsorship. Mm-hmm. They don't have enough corporate money coming in terms of season tickets, because that contributes. And I think just them having sponsors in general, being able to supplement their income. I think I was talking to a couple of people, and we were kind of in agreement that this organization, I think, is still a net positive, and they're still bringing in money, but I think it's not to the level that the NHL wants it to be, right? I think there's some sort of
last year, yes. I don't think this year. I don't think this year, when they were like, they probably took huge losses the nights that they had 11,000 people in that building. Like, they're a cap team. They're spending
potentially
85 million on this team in salary cap. It's not like they're the Arizona Coyotes and they're only spending 60 million on their players. They're paying their players in USD. And they bought the organization for 170 million. I think it's 700 million now. So like they've been fine. They've made a profit. But I think this season, I don't have the numbers but none of us do.
100%.
But
No,
I'm sure they're losing money this year.
I'm sure they're but to my point, and Brian also has made this comment multiple times. They have one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest, Canadians in their like back pocket. To be quite frank, this should not. I don't think this chat is about. I think this may be about attendance issues and about getting corporate sponsorship and that sort of case. I don't think this has anything to do with the casual fan or fan interest or anything like that. Obviously, we saw the Jets had issues with that to begin the year, but as soon as they started winning and they showed that they are trying to win, people have flooded the building. So I don't think that. I think this has to do with a different picture than what people think it is. There's a lot of reporters that think this is on the fans themselves only, and I just don't think that that is the picture that is being drawn.
Yeah, and that's fair, and I think the corporate sponsorships is a clear need and a clear spot that people realize. Like, they only have 10%. I believe the number is the number everywhere else in Canada is 45% or higher, et cetera, et cetera. We Brian and I's thoughts were on Sunday's episode for that. For me now, Brian, I'll get your thoughts next, but for me, the biggest thing going into this next day, these next 24 hours, the fireside chat, the media, we bring up David Thompson all the time. The Jets are backed by the wealthiest man in Canada. I've said this a couple times now. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't know how many billions he's worth. But one of the wealthiest people in North America, etc. The biggest question for me, and obviously right now it's a no, given how they're currently rolling. But if David Thompson were to ever back out, would True North be able to supplement and run the Jets here without taking massive losses? And again, David Thompson, one of the wealthiest people in North America, didn't get where he was taking massive losses either, right? So if they're at a massive loss, and maybe this is why they're trying to get ahead of this problem, what if David Thompson backed out and said, you know what, I don't want to lose $20 million every year on this investment, so see ya. And then, well, can True North, like, are they fine? Are they able to keep the Jets here? I don't know. I think I don't know if that question gets asked, because I don't know if we're there yet. I think the more important problem is the corporate sponsors getting people to rebuy into the team. I don't think David Thompson is anywhere near backing out again after 2 down years after a pandemic, especially when the value of the franchise went way up, right? But I think that's the biggest looming question. I don't know if that's a pressing question, but that's the biggest kind of concern for me, is like, what if that ever happened? Then maybe True North could, if they got back to 13,000 and David Thompson ever backed out, they could probably run the Jets here just fine and still make a profit and be okay. But obviously it helps when you're backed by one of the most wealthiest people in North America. Brian, what are you looking for over the next 24 hours? Is there anything you think Gary Bettman might say? I don't know if he's really just going to deflect, or if he's going to really give us some answers as to why he's here, or reassure the fan base, saying like, hey, you got nothing to worry about. We just need your support.
I'm going to be really boring with my answer. I'm just looking for something that doesn't line up with what Chipman said in his sort of concerns thing with Chris Johnson, where I feel like you're just going to get essentially an echoing of this can't work long term. If we don't get this up, we got to get this up. We got to get these numbers up. And I have a feeling that it's just going to be a lot of that. But I feel like it is also going to be similar to what Chipman was saying earlier with his talk with Drager, where it's like, no, we're dedicated to, the long-term success of hockey in Winnipeg. I think it's going to be a very, very boring fireside chat. I don't think there's anything big coming out of this. I'm looking for things that don't necessarily jive with the exact same sentiment that Chipman put out there earlier this week.
Yeah. And I think another, I 100% agree with you. That's definitely something to watch for. And the corporate sponsors, we've talked about that. I think Bettman can help with that. Like corporations, powerful people can sway powerful people to buy season tickets for the Winnipeg Jets. Like, I just think that that's something that could happen. So what I'm interested to see with the fireside chat specifically is like, is he basically just going to sit up there and have like a heart-to-heart with the fans? Like, what kind of questions is he going to be answering here? Or is he going to basically be talking through Sarah Orlesky to corporations? And is he going to do like this big act of like reassuring, like, hey, you're fine here. Like, you're good to buy season tickets back. Like, True North admitted and Mark Chipman admitted, like, hey, they haven't been the best service organization, and we want to welcome you back into Canada Life Center? Or is he really going to have a heart-to-heart with fans and be like, hey, this won't work and we need your help, and we want this to work here, and these are all the things we're doing to make it work here? Like, will there be a plan of action that comes out of this? I don't know. These are the things I'm watching for. Do you guys have any more thoughts on Bettman in general? I mean, what are we looking for? No, Elliott?
I think the only thing I'm looking for is any sort of like Brian thinks that there's going to be not too much comes out of this. He's going to be kind of bland, which is fair. That's kind of who he is. I
totally see that. Yeah.
I can totally see it. I do hope, and I know I've brought different sports up, but I think, and I'm going to say this, and I know we cover a Jets podcast, the best commissioner in all of sports is Adam Silver. But the reason why that is because he's candid and he is honest with people. And I think Bettman, in this case, needs to be honest about what's going on. He may not have to tell the whole story, but he should give us a general picture of, one, why he's here, and two, what is his plan depending on what he's like, what is going on, right? And if that's as vague as, if it's a very vague of like, oh, we're a little concerned and, I'm just here to see what's going on and maybe I can give some help. Like, if that is his general statement, then that's great. I will take that and say this is a successful meeting with Gary Bettman and this fireside chat, and applaud to him that he gave us at least a little bit of something. As long as there's something there that he is being honest with us about what is going on, whatever reason why he's here, and if he gives some sort of answer about what his plan is or what the league office's plan is and what True North's plan is, at least even a little vague statement, I don't care. That'll be enough for me, because I just don't want him to go up there and just say, oh yeah, the team's not moving, and comment. And the fireside chat, oh, no, you don't have anything to worry about, fans. Don't worry about it. And he is like, and if somebody asks, and Sarah will actually pick this question and say, oh, why are you here? Oh, I'm just doing my rounds for the year and just checking out all the teams. I don't want to hear that. If I hear that, I'm gonna be mad, because
I wanted to
make a huge big deal about that. If you're not doing, if that's just what you're doing, then I'm gonna be mad. Personally,
I wanted to make a comment on that because I've seen that as a response online. People just go, oh, well, Gary Bettman's coming, but he goes to every team throughout the year. So, like, what's different? He goes to every team. A, he doesn't hold media press conferences, and B, he definitely doesn't hold a fireside chat with fans inside the arena before a game, like, especially on the heels of an article coming out with attendance concerns. Like, this is so contextually different than him going to Vegas and being on the strip for a week and being like, hey, this expansion was a huge success, guys. Thanks. Like, this is so different than that. And I've just seen that as a common response. So I wanted to say, like, yeah, he goes everywhere, but he doesn't do this everywhere.
But if he does say that, I'm going to be mad. That's all I'm saying. If that is what he comes out, I don't think so. But if he makes a comment, something like that, then I'll say, well, then there was no point in holding a media press conference and doing this fireside chat. What was the point of that? Because the whole point of this should be to give some clarity.
I think we'll get some clarity for sure. We'll be back Wednesday to break it all down. Or Wednesday we'll be recording. We'll be back Thursday in your podcast feed to break it all down, seeing what Gary Bettman says, and we'll be breaking down the Jets and Blues game that goes on right after that fireside chat and the media press conference with Gary Bettman. So tune back in Thursday. That should be a fun episode. Lots of thoughts to come out of this weekend. Thank you for listening to episode 70. Another milestone, and as Brian said right off the top, 1,000 downloads this month. Thank you everyone for listening. We couldn't do it without your support, and we're really loving this new content schedule, and it seems like you are too. So we really appreciate it, and we can't wait to get back to the LFP Live once again this Sunday. But before that, tune in Thursday. From Brian, Elliott, and I, thank you everyone for listening to episode 70 of the Level Flight Podcast, and we will see you Thursday.